Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, November 17th, 2020 Board of Selectmen's meeting. Steph made it just in time.
Oh my God. Just came from outpatient PT with Jimmy McGowan.
Steph, I'll have you lead us in the
I would
Pledge of
love to.
Allegiance.
I'd be honored. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, good evening. Let's get on with our agenda. Anybody here for citizens input? Any emails or texts? None. All right, we'll move right along, seeing that I think Deputy Convin is all set, and we'll do the COVID update.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we, in light of the fact that we continue to trend upward, our numbers currently are 50 cases in Foxborough, which is the largest number I've seen so far. I thought it would be appropriate, I'm going to peel this down for a little bit. I thought it would be appropriate to have Deputy Chief Convin speak about what he sees and what's been going on in Foxborough, and to see if he can give us his perspective and update on what's going on with COVID-19. So, Deputy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. Like Bill said, we are at 50 active cases in town. There's a little bit of flux in that, as some cases are still being followed that are reaching the timeline where they could clear up isolation. So we're still following some of those cases. Working closely with the CTC, they've actually reported that a lot of the positives that we're seeing now in the Commonwealth are originating from household contacts. As you can imagine, it's incredibly difficult to isolate in the home. So given that, it seems logical that those folks would have higher exposures and ultimately test positive. And I think the second pattern that they've been seeing is that employees are becoming positive as they eat and congregate in break areas, things like that. So there's some correlation to, folks having a break or a lunch in the same confined area, also resulting in positives. We are currently still in the yellow. Our numbers will update toward the end of the week on Thursday afternoon, and we'll see where that lands us. I think over the last 2 weeks or so, we've approached 58 cases positive. So it shows that we are still accelerating quite actively, and that's between PCR tests as well as antigen tests. But overall, I think what we're seeing is the households and then clusters, small clusters associated with workplaces.
Thank you, Deputy. But in terms of 50 cases right now, we're at a yellow stage, and so does what does that mean, just so that everybody can understand that for the listening public tonight?
Sure. So with regard to the color coding, it's meant to show kind of like a risk stratification or a layering, if you will, so that cities and towns be afforded the opportunity to have a greater awareness of where they are in terms of positive caseloads, but also have the resources at the state at their disposal to help and stop the spread testing or other guidance resources that may be needed by a town or a city to try to curb some rapid acceleration or spread of COVID. For Foxborough right now, we are in the yellow. This is based on population. So you have the gray or unshaded, green, yellow, and then the red. And red shows that that's at your peak positives per day, given 100,000 per population, which can give indications to the rapidity of spread and measures that may be taken to kind of curb that. So as we approach another week, hopefully in the yellow, it'll be more of an enhanced awareness to really take this really seriously, to do the best we can to wear our masks, physically distance when possible, hand hygiene, and be very mindful of just the space you are in proximity to other people. I know it's going to be really difficult as we approach the holidays. I know personally, we've had to work on some quarantining at home, and I realize how truly difficult it is to quarantine and isolate. So we really appreciate everyone doing the best they can at their level.
Thank you.
So, Deputy, you mentioned that you're seeing a lot in families. Are you seeing groups of families where there's 2, 3, or more in that family that are all testing positive?
Yes, I think that's a fair assumption to make, or a fair statement to make, that we have seen several clusters where households, maybe one person would test positive, and then shortly thereafter, successive household members would also test positives. So grouping 2 to 3, as you mentioned, yes.
And also, you also mentioned spaces where people might at work go and have lunch or a break. Is that with the mapping that you're doing afterwards, that you're seeing that, two people may have been in the same room and then eventually got it? Break room?
Well, I have some. I have some personal involvement with some of those with the gathering issues on like a lunchroom, but also reported by the CTC or the Contact Tracing Collaborative. So in their questioning and in their data polls, this is one of the patterns that they've recognized.
Okay, thank you.
So with the level at 11, Tom, are we looking at adjusting any of our operations with regard to schools or anything like that at this point?
I would say not. I see we have some had some positives within the schools related to a sports team, but it looks as if our general spread in the schools is very, very low. Again, we have pockets, but I have to admit that Amy Burdos and her administrative team and Jen Rosenberg and her nursing staff have just been absolutely amazing and extremely proactive. And I think that's a real reason why right now the school is one of the safest environments in town. I think that they're doing an amazing job. And I think that all the spread that we see is, again, I think it's coming out from some of those patterns we talked about before, some of the spreads in the household where, it's really difficult to isolate. And then some of these workplace environments where people are more casual about their encounters when they're eating or lounging in that manner. So I think right now, like I said, the schools seem to be doing really, really well, especially that healthcare team that's there with Jen and her team. They're amazing.
Great, thank you. Chairman, if anybody members of the board have questions.
Yeah, with all the uptick in cases and stuff, is there any delay with testing results? I know you guys have your own, but other places. So is there a slowdown with getting results for people?
Well, I think the state and the health agencies involved with testing have done an amazing job. So the volume of tests that are being turned over is immense, and they're doing it pretty fluently. You're seeing that within 24 to 48 hours, I think, across the board. Again, there are rapid test results. We can give you a molecular PCR test within 15 minutes. You also have the rapid antigen tests. But just going off the standard PCR test that you would get maybe in a stop the spread or a doctor's office, generally we're seeing results in 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes you're seeing it a little bit longer, but I think as a general statement, it's fair to say within 24 to 48 hours.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, one more question, unless anybody else has a question. So could you, maybe in our area with people maybe potentially doing some traveling over the holidays and want to be tested either before they leave and or when they come back, what are the best places or what are the easiest places for people in Foxborough? I certainly know CVS does appointments. What other places could people go, Tom?
That's a good question. A lot of places, simply could be sought during a Google search. However, you could always start with your primary care physician or pediatrician's office and see what resources are available there. The urgent care centers, and like you said, the CVS and the Walgreens that actually do the testing are great resources, and they're always seem to be available for resources that I've actually interacted with folks in town. They've seemed to be very responsive.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy. Appreciate the time. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next is Foxborough Lions Club. We have a public event application. President of the Lions Club, Tom Barry, is going to come up and tell us about the event.
All right, with everything being shut down, this year was kind of tough for all the community service, trying to raise money. The Lions alone lost both of their big events, which brought in about $25,000. So we're all trying to find ways to raise money. So the idea that came up with the old muscular dystrophy toll booths that the fire department used to use. Just to try to collect extra change or whatever to help so we can continue supporting the food banks, the high school scholarships. We support seniors and students if they can't afford glasses. We actually pay for the glasses. So we're trying to still maintain that at right now a lower level because of money coming in. So the idea came up to maybe do the toll booth around the common, and understanding that that end of the common has a yield sign now, so we wouldn't have anybody there. But we would maintain the stop signs on South Street, Main Street, Cocasset, and Mechanic Street. We man those. It's for 4 hours, 8 to 12, November 28th. It's a Saturday morning. My thought is that we would have 2 people at each intersection. The idea, we will maintain the mask. We will have rubber gloves. The church has donated their collection baskets, so we don't have to reach into a car. So St. Mary's is allowing us to use 6 of those. The other thing came up about wearing something bright. I work for Santander. They donated 4 of these for us to wear, and hopefully we'll find 4 more somewhere. And it's, so we're trying to maintain a safe level as much as we can and try to collect money.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was a little surprised for us to see any application for any type of fundraising. So here's the thoughts I have. Everything seems to be rolling backwards a little bit. I think it's great to see those baskets. And I was thinking in my head, reading some of the information we were given, and I think Christina had mentioned that you guys someone had talked about a longer basket. Couple of things. If someone throws change in there, if the 28th happens to be a windy day and a dollar bill goes in there and the dollar bill goes in the air, so that's the only concern I have about that type of basket.
Yep.
Just generally today, maybe I talked to 8 or 10 people, general, my mother, my sister, a friend in town, just general people, and ask them, not one person thought that they would like to have this happen, if they don't want to roll down their window. So here's the thing. I 100% appreciate all the Lions do. I think it's fantastic. I'm not quite sure the timing is right. I would almost rather see you guys come back in the spring. For me, I think it's just the timing. I think everything you guys do is wonderful. I don't know if it's the right time. I mean, everything is rolling back. I know you guys are in the same boat as everybody else. There's almost no fundraising going on at all, and it's awful for all the organizations. I don't know. Doesn't sit well with me. And I know the blessing has come from, it looks like everybody else is checked off. So let me elaborate just a little bit more. So I work in the food industry in a restaurant. The gloves are very controversial. When the pandemic hit and, the manager at the restaurant I work with was looking into how do we keep the staff safe? How do we keep our patrons safe? And the gloves are very controversial because people get a false sense of security. The gloves pass, some people say you're almost better to be barehanded and continue to wash or sanitize than gloves, because the same thing. And I know now we're finding out that the virus is probably a little bit more airborne. It's respiratory more than the touching. But the touching, you can still touch. I mean, we're still washing hands. I don't know. I mean, completely, obviously, once everybody has their questions answered and it goes to a vote, I think for a person who's been involved with a lot of fundraising, I think you would be better to wait till people feel more comfortable. I know when I'm driving in the car, I don't have my mask on when I'm driving, but I'm wondering, like, people going to scramble for a mask as they're approaching you? Are they going to take their eyes off the road? I feel like if you waited till the spring, till the numbers got better, till maybe the vaccine was out, you might do better in the fundraising. You may have more people that would definitely would want to put money in the basket that maybe might not roll their window down because they just don't want to. So I guess, I don't know, those are my concerns. I feel like you guys have done all you can. For me, it's just the timing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure everybody else has their own thoughts, and that's just my thoughts. I would love to see you be successful, you know, and again, thank you for everything you guys do, which is a lot. I appreciate it a lot.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
I guess I see it more, and although Stephanie has made some good points, we are in the midst of a horrific pandemic. At the same time, it seems like the plan that you've worked out lessens the risk for people, both the drivers as well as the group itself, the Lions, collecting the money that always goes to a good purpose within our community.
Right.
And if nothing else, maybe it could be a little bit of a shocking reality that eventually we will get back to normal. That things that we've had to pass in the past 8 months, eventually we'll survive and get through it.
Yep.
And I'm more willing to say, yeah, let's give this a try for a good reason.
So my thought, again, is just timing. I feel like everything right now is Thanksgiving. So there's a big emphasis, numbers are going up and the Thanksgiving weekend spread. Just the weekend of Thanksgiving for me, honestly, and my gut makes it a little tough. I want to see this go through. I want to see you guys do this.
Yep.
But then I've got, on each shoulder kind of thinking it through. I know that Founder's Day decided to not, which we have Rob O.D. here, right? You guys didn't do it for Founder's Day this year, which you usually do.
Yeah, my brother Scott.
Oh, Scott does it. Okay, but you guys, no one did it, right?
No, I don't.
I know I went and looked, and the Knights of Columbus usually do their Tootsie Drive in October. They didn't do it. So a little bit of the slippery slope, everyone's having trouble fundraising right now. And, how do we know next weekend it's not the YMCA and then the PTO? And I don't drive with a mask on, and my comfort level is, is different than some people maybe, but I would want to donate, and pulling up, not having a mask on, my gut is just the timing right now. I'd like to see it even go back like a week, just get through Thanksgiving, something. But, the slippery slope and the timing for me is just where, I haven't made up my mind either way. I just keep thinking and going back and forth,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a tough one because I 100% agree with everything the Lions do and great civic org. I think the timing of this is just terrible. It also opens up because nobody can fundraise right now, so I don't think we have anything on the books. What are the rules to allowing groups to do this? So next, is it going to be the Boosters Club are going to be before us wanting to do this, or the soccer club or whatever? I can remember back 5 or 6 years ago, I think when we added the Knights, that was a healthy debate on even allowing that. With Foxborough now at 50 cases, I just think the timing is terrible. I really do.
Okay.
Like I said, this is a tough decision because if it wasn't COVID, this would be a, sure, here you go, rubber stamp,
Yeah,
right,
no
right,
brainer.
no-brainer, yeah.
Yeah.
No brainer.
Okay.
Can I ask one other question? It may be directed at Bill, because Bill may have the answer. Is this, well, I know we've kind of had boxes checked for them, but is this in compliance with the governor is saying? I mean, are we going to be 6 feet apart the whole time? And, I just didn't, that just kind of popped in my head as we were talking.
Well, if they did it, I mean, it would be just 2 of them at a
Right.
corner, and as long
Yeah.
as they're 6
I
feet.
even just thought about hand washing, like there's nowhere for those 4 hours when someone's coming up with hundreds of cars to even go wash their hands. I guess you could use hand sanitizer, but.
So I guess it's all in the matter of which they do the collections, and I think we recommended that you use the church basket because it gave distance between you and the
Yeah.
collection. So
Yeah.
if that gets put right into a basket, or a bag,
Yep.
right after that, then there's probably little to no hand contact whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we did review this with the Board of Health, and their COVID compliance plan was accepted by them, so they are in compliance in that respect. So this is one of the things where it's a gut feel more than it is anything. I think if the board doesn't feel comfortable at this point in time, I guess the question really goes back to the Lions. How does this impact your operation for the next several months, if in fact you can't do it now, or is it something this can wait?
It could wait. It could wait. It definitely could wait, because I understand the whole open mass
Yeah.
rolling down
Well,
the
and you know,
windows and
you know
stuff.
something, I think you would, this is my gut. I think you would be more successful with the time being better, which is, I mean, the whole reason you're doing it is to, you know, to have a successful event and be able to do all the great things you do. Yeah, and you know, yeah, for me, the timing's just off. I mean, I would love to see you be successful. I think, personally, I think a later date
Yep,
would make you guys have a more successful event, you
Okay.
know? Just my thought.
yep.
If I may, I spoke with one of the, John Robertson of the Board of Health, and he said that the interaction is just a quick 15, 30-second interaction, and it's a very low-risk thing. So he wasn't, even if somebody doesn't have a mask in the car, that with the basket and with the social distancing, they had no concerns. And I believe, I don't know what group it was, I can't think off the top of my head, that actually did something similar to this somewhere else nearby. So just factoring that in.
And I had a little reservations until Tom told us about the basket from St. Mary's. I think that's a little bit of a game changer for me, being able to stay that far away with the basket, the little bit of humor involved with the fact that it's a collection basket, too. So for me, it changed my thought tremendously that it's a go in my mind, but you three brought up a great point. Would it be more efficient doing it in the spring around April, where maybe the vaccine's been doled out to a bigger portion of the population? And just the fact that it's springtime, people might be more amenable to.
Having the window open.
Huh?
Having the window open.
Have it, right.
The weather
So-
won't be as cold, you know, and, window will be
So,
open, so.
yeah, you know, yeah, we want you to do it. I think it's a great idea for you to do it, a great way to start your fundraising kickoff. And if it doesn't really affect your fiscal, like if you did it in April, would you still be able to do the scholarships probably?
Yeah.
And-
I mean, we have the money budgeted for the scholarship, and also for the food pantry, for what we donate this year. So it's just the next year, you know, trying to keep that in, keep them going.
Right.
And again, the glasses are, you know, it based on how many citizens in the town need glasses and can't afford it.
Would you be willing to come back in March
Oh,
for
yeah.
maybe an April?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd
Is
review it
everybody
again.
like feel more comfortable if it would?
Yeah, I would hate to say no, but I just would feel a lot more comfortable, because I don't think anyone wants to say no.
No,
It's just
no.
what makes sense
Right.
for
It's
you
not the
guys and
cause,
the
that's the
community.
problem.
I think now that we're spitballing it out
Yeah.
and talking about it, I
Yeah.
really do think a springtime would be a better time, not only because of COVID, but I think financially, I think
yeah.
you'll probably do better in a little bit of a warmer weather.
All right.
So maybe, can we put this on hold
Sure.
and not necessarily vote and have you come back in March?
Yep.
For maybe an April date?
Maybe April, yeah.
In this way, does that sound like
Yeah.
a good idea? We'll just put it on hold?
Yep.
It doesn't appear to be a downside to it, so I think that's
No.
actually,
No.
Right.
as long as it's not a downside to you
No,
operationally, I think
it's
that's.
not. It's, you
Okay,
know,
good.
So,
But, yeah.
Because other than the timing, I think everything is great.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and even if the virus is in, if the church is still willing to give you the baskets, at that point, just see that extra. You know what I was gonna say, if we did vote on it, because I'm dealing with money all night long. Money is the worst thing, because everyone's had their hands on it, you don't know if they've sneezed, what they've done.
Yep.
So I'm not going to shake hands with you tonight.
Well, my hands are red raw from the hand sanitizers, but you know what I do? At the end of the night, the money that's going home with me, I take a Clorox wipe and wipe the money down before it goes in. And if we had voted, I was gonna tell you, it just might, you know, even once you're away from the people,
Right.
it's still, you know,
Yep.
and then, I think you'd be much more successful in the spring, myself, which is what I would hope for you.
Yeah.
You know, and are we allowed to say that, you know, if anybody is looking to make some donations, that the Lions Club would take a.
Oh, absolutely.
Just take, you know, take a donation to even help you get by until you have
Yep.
your fundraiser.
Right.
Is that allowed, or? is
So I
that-
just heard Stephanie say she's going to make a donation.
Well, you know,
Like cares from work.
I'm gonna tell you, like, I was kind of thinking, I was gonna reach out,
There
take
you
a
go.
$10 bill.
She's got all
and say, "Here,
sorts of
take it."
money.
Where's your basket?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the basket,
Yeah, I
you
know the
know.
basket.
So let's, do we have to take a vote to postpone, or just postpone it till?
Just table it for the time
Table
being.
it, there you go,
Table it,
that's the
yeah,
word.
table it.
We'll table it till March then, Tom. And I've got 2 more vests, so you
Okay.
can remember me for, I'll do it 2 vests for donation too.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you, Tom. I
Thank
think it's
you
a
very
great
much.
idea,
Thanks.
but
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Tom.
Thank you for everything you guys do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
all right. Running a tad late, but we'll do the Board of Assessors and Finance team. We're going to do our yearly classification hearing.
Smart.
Gentlemen, are you already called your meeting to order and all that stuff, so you're all set? Okay, good.
Now, do we have to read anything? Or,
I think we're going to do the presentation first, and then they'll talk about what motions have to be made, things of that nature. So, I mean, in terms of a hearing notice, there isn't a formal hearing. This is a classification hearing. There isn't a formal notice that goes in the paper for this.
okay.
Okay.
All right, George, you're up.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Hannelore Simons. I'm the Chief Assessor. Beside me is George Sumner. He's the Finance Director. And also, we have the Board of Assessors members, Robert O'Donnell, and our newest member, Daniel Smith. So,
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I just want to make sure before we get further in. We're motioning to close the public hearing. Is the presentation part of should we be opening the public hearing?
It was posted as a public hearing.
Okay, I didn't know if we had to, because then we're motioning to close, so I didn't know if we had to open it. I just did want to get halfway through and then,
Yeah, so we're closing it but not opening it? Or was it opened at your assessors meeting on Monday?
We opened our meeting before here.
and we closed our meeting to
No, I don't think
join your
it's,
meeting.
it's not a meeting.
It's a public
I see what
hearing.
you're saying. If it's, is this a public hearing?
It's a public hearing because it's in a public forum for this, yeah.
It's a
so
joint
that's fine.
meeting.
But would we have to, after their presentation, ask for any public comment and then
So-
close the public meeting?
Right, so then you can just close, and then close the hearing, and then take a vote on the actions.
so
before.
the opening is the publication?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right, yeah,
Okay.
is the hearing itself, right.
Yeah, we did that one time before, if it didn't open.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, we want to get it right.
Okay, so the purpose of the meeting is to assist the Board of Selectmen in their decision of selecting the residential factor. Massachusetts laws allows for a shift of the tax burden between the residential and commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. commercial, industrial, and personal property, it's many times referred to as a CIP to make up for those three classes. Foxborough first adopted the shift or a split tax rate in fiscal 2012. By adopting the factor of 1 or no shift, it would result in a taxation of all properties at the same rate, a single tax rate. By adopting a residential factor of less than 1, results in increasing the taxes paid by the commercial, industrial, and personal property. So what that really means is that residential property owners will therefore pay a proportional lower share of the total levy. You can do the next one. And in addition, the Board of Selectmen has 3 more options. There is an open space discount, which currently Foxborough doesn't classify. Then we have a residential exemption and a small commercial exemption. And we will talk about that in more detail later on. What is the shift?
Stay, again, all right.
So what is a shift? The next sheet. What is a shift? Actually would result in 2 tax rates, one for the commercial rate and one for the residential rate. So actually by commercial, I mean the CIP classes. Our next sheet is the distribution of the classes by the total valuation. And as you can see, the highest percent is the residential class. And again, open space, we don't classify, so therefore we don't have a percentage. Commercial is 16.2693%, industrial is 2.113%, and then we have personal property at 3.432%. The impact of the shift, without a shift, a single tax rate, and one with a shift. So if you look in the without a shift, there is a annual assessment or an annual tax rate of $7,589, and with the shift, it's $7,168. So that's a difference, I did the math, of $421. And the average commercial property value goes from $33,164 to $39,810, an increase. And the average in industrial property goes from $12,738 to $15,291. And again, the goal is to maintain the same level of shift. Next sheet. The effects of the shift on the average single family assessed value. Let's assume that the fiscal 2021 tax rate is $14.75. Then there is a difference of 18 cents between the 2 years. And the average single family value went from $473,016 to $485,876. That is an increase of $12,860. The average single family tax bill is $6,892, and it's going up to $7,167. That's an increase over the year of $275. Commercial rates are $18.53 in 2020, and for the new rate, again, it's an estimated rate of $18.75. That's a difference of 22 cents. The average commercial value went from $2,104,409 to $2,123,119. an increase of $22,781. The average commercial tax bill goes from $38,921 to $39,800. That is an increase of $889. So here is a year span over 5 years, showing all classes of properties with a percent change from fiscal 2020 to fiscal 2021. So the last row shows you the percentage change from 2020 to 2021. And it shows you all the classes. So there's a total value change of 2.34%.
By the way, those top numbers are in the billion, B, not million.
So question on that, in the residential column, the fiscal year percent change, the 2.86, that's from FY '20 to FY '21?
Right, it refers to 2020 and 20, that's correct, 21.
And it's important to note, too, that the values are as of December 31st, 2019.
Yes.
All right, so it does not include anything from this current calendar year. That will be for next year, when you set the tax rate next year.
So let me just explain. So if a tax bill is decided for the new values for 2021 are based on sales from calendar year 2019. So because year 2020 isn't completed yet, so Mass General Law says we have to use the year of 2019 because that's a completed year. That doesn't mean we can't look into the first, quarter of the new year and the last quarter of the year before, just to see if there's any differences, to come up with our values. But that's the time frame of the whole thing. So we always behind when people look, oh, my house just sold, for $400,000, or I just bought one for $400,000. And you have an assessment on there, it's so different. Yeah, it's because we haven't analyzed this year's sales. We analyzed the sales for 2019. So we're always behind when a realtor, I think, looks at it, right, Rob? You look at it at maybe a 6 month span? Yeah, so that's the difference, how we look at it. It's all timely. It's really a timely matter of everything what we do. Okay, with this here, then here are the effects of the shift.
Hannah?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. Does the valuation ever go down?
Well, it depends on the market. The market drives the valuation.
I know, I was just curious, because so I know we're looking from 17 on, and, the market's been good in that.
It's been steadily going up,
yeah,
and
in that
that's
timeframe.
just the market condition right now. So if there would be a drop, then we would have to, address that eventually.
Yeah.
If you look at from the last 10 years, Stephanie, it really hasn't gone down at all.
Yeah, like 08. Yeah, 2008 is the last time we saw that.
Yeah. Well, because I was curious, so I don't ever remember our taxes ever going down in 22, 23 years. Would that also be if the tax rate may have gone up? So you would never see a decrease?
So
I think the next slide.
The thing is, let's let's explain that. Okay, here are the effects of the shift between the residential and the commercial data over a span of 5 years again. And so it is notable when you look in the last column again, the fiscal year 2021, you see an increase of 1.25%. And if you go further down under the commercial rate, the last column, there is an increase of 1.17%. And this is really should be really noted, because the residential tax rate increased by 1.25% and the CIP rate increased by 1.7% from 2020 to 2021. So the tax bills are going higher than that. not because of the tax rate, but because of the values continue climbing up.
So it's an important point, because what's significant about this is that if you know, there's always concern about taxes are going higher. Our taxes are not going that much higher, actually. In fact, if you look at the past 5 years, the tax rate was actually higher in 2015. It was like 1507. You'll see there's a historical.
It's 1504.
Yeah, you see
There
it's
was an example we
1504.
gave last year that I think
Yeah.
was easy for people to understand. Like, if your house is worth $500,000 in 2019, and the tax rate stayed the exact same, the value of your house might go up, if you were to, call Rob and sell it, and it might be worth $525. So the tax rate's the same, but because the value of your house has gone up, your taxes will go up. So that's why people try to balance it or correlate it to the 2%. You're never gonna be
absolutely
able to do that, because there's
Right.
two factors
That's correct.
that
That's
go into your
absolutely-
tax bill.
That's right on. That's very much on.
correct.
Right.
But what's interesting is that the tax rate itself is not going up that much. It's only marginal, which is a good sign, because that means we're keeping our costs down, which is a
Well,
good.
and that's why sometimes, I think in advisory committee last year, somebody said, well, but, my neighbors, you think it's just your neighbor, and it's just, the home value, how come mine went up, or someone else, I think when they hear the
Differently than the two-
They hear the 2.5, and they
Right.
think that means your tax bill went up 2.5, but it's not, because your value may have, in a certain neighborhood, may have made a big jump.
And that's exactly what we're
Okay.
going to get into in the next couple of
Okay.
But
moments.
then keep in mind too, the town always will need the money it needs to run the town,
Right,
So they still gotta collect that regardless if the value is up or down. It doesn't matter. The tax rate is still gonna be what it's gonna be.
Right,
Regardless of that.
So the tax rate, just say the values
Or
went down.
the tax, I shouldn't say the tax
town
rate.
needs X amount of money to operate. So to do that, you would just make the tax rate higher?
No, it's not the tax rate, the amount of money the town needs to run the
Well,
town.
technically, Stephanie's correct, though. If the values go down, then the rate would go up.
Yes,
Because
it's an inverse relationship.
Because you
It's an
still,
inverse
you still have to
relationship.
bring X amount of money in.
Correct.
To run the
That's
town.
correct.
Right.
That's right.
So essentially, I'm going to use your thing, I'm going to steal it. But if you had that, let's say there was only one house in town and we were paying $10 and it was 500,000, then the next year it jumped to $1 million, then we're going to be paying $5 on the rate. If it was $1 million and it dropped down, it'll go back up to 10. So, and by the way, that's the state of Massachusetts, that's the way it's calculated, nothing to do with we're doing something, it's the way the calculation
Yeah.
goes.
So just another point, so it is a good sign that we are holding down the cost of operating and maintaining services at an acceptable level, okay? And values continue to increase, which makes Foxborough a good investment for residential and commercial property owners. George, you're next.
This kind of gets in, this next little section kind of gets into what you were just talking about. We just got a little bit of a head on it, but it says, why do my taxes increase every year? Well, essentially, the same reason your household budget has to increase every year. The town is subject to all the same changes that everyone else is. If you have, in your house, you have utility bills that are going up because gas and oil and all the other things that go with it are going up. Insurance prices go up, et cetera, food prices, et cetera. Well, the town is in the same exact position. Our insurances go up. The cost of the folks that are operating the town go up. There are health insurance costs, there are utility costs, and et cetera, et cetera. So every year, we have to adjust for those particular costs. Now we get to the point that I think Stephanie brought up a couple of minutes ago, which is the Proposition 2.5 cap. And again, you called it right where it is. The town, sometime in the mid-'80s, the state of Massachusetts went over to they adopted what was called Proposition 2.5, which essentially capped the amount of money that a town can raise in any one particular year to 2.5%. That 2.5% isn't on anyone's particular home. It's on the entire tax base, okay? So in this particular case, I'll just give you a quick example. This year, the way you calculate this out, you take last year's levy limit, which was 49,768,000. You add to it 2.5%, which in this particular year is 1,244,000. You add to it new growth. Remember, you heard that particular thing. We actually came in better than what we actually predicted for it. But the new growth is somebody built a new home, somebody built an annex onto their house, a garage, new business opened up. So we collected an extra. These were things that didn't exist the year before. That gives you what is known as your levy limit, okay? And then when we talk about overrides or debt exclusions, this is where the town has its hand on the switch. And when I say the town, this is the voters. The only way we can get beyond that 2.5% with the new growth is to say, we would like to raise this, we'll call it $2 million, okay? We can do it as an override. This hasn't been done, by the way, not at least in the last number of years that I can say. I don't know whether it was ever done way back. I don't think we ever did it override.
We've never had an operating override.
Okay.
We've done exclusions we've had.
Couple of debt exclusions that you've done, which are on there, and by the way, this year's debt exclusions were $2,180,000. These are things that you already existed in. The difference, I think I mentioned this while you guys were here a number of nights back, is what's the difference between a debt exclusion and an override? Override is, I'm just taking a bunch of money and we're putting it into the budget and it's going to be there forever and ever, and it's going to start accumulating 2.5% every year. A debt exclusion says, hey, you want to build a building, I'm all for it. You can raise the money for the building and you can pay for that every year on the bond issuance that you've done. When the bond issuance is gone, the tax is gone. It ends at the end of that. And by the way, it doesn't collect that 2.5%. So essentially, we're held by 2.5%. Now comes your question. I paid $1,000 last year, okay? I should only be paying $1,025 this year, okay? It doesn't work that way. It's the base. We've already determined now that we're up to $53 million. But your house might have gone up in value by $50,000. Your house might have even gone down in value by $10,000, okay? So you're splitting that $53 million up amongst all of it, and it's being charged. So it never comes out like what was exactly 2.5%. So we're held to the 2.5%, and the town has its hand on the switch. It's not going to be 2.5% on each person's home, okay? It's on the entire tax base. There's one other thing that's out there, and it's called the levy ceiling. And I believe it's $86 million here, which means...
It's actually in a slide you have. From the
the next one?
Next one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, $86,325,000, okay? What does that mean? Well, if we can raise $53,941 now, what's the levy ceiling? Well, how would you even get up there? Let's say we came up with something next year and said, we want to raise another $50 million, which is like a joke even saying it, but we want to raise another $50 million with like an override. Oh no, you can go up another $33 million, up to that 86%. You can't raise any more than that because it kind of goes arm in arm with the idea of buying something, with a loan that's not worth it, okay? The bank ain't going to give you the money for it. So they're saying that's how high you can go. And beyond that, right now, you can't go by that. But now, it's a moot question because we haven't done an override in years. And even the last thing, which I keep complimenting you guys on, it all happened before I got here. Even when you did the last big construction project, you guys skirted around actually asking for a debt exclusion. You paid for it internally, which is, again, I keep saying it's something that's just not done. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just not done, but it's, my hat's off to you, okay? So essentially, that's where we are with it. So one other thing, excess levy capacity, we ended with $38,000 this year to the good. I try to turn things into normal things for people, and, well, what does that mean out of a $53 million? If you had a house and your average income is 50 grand, I try to come up with that, it would be like, we spent it all except for $35. There's your excess levy. What's gonna happen, that'll go on to next year's capacity. So, we kind of went over, here's the levy limit, here's the maximum levy, and what's the excess levy capacity. This was just a slide that was talking about those things, and I kind of got ahead of it, okay? Debt exclusion overrides, we've gone over, levy limit and actual levy, and then the 2.5%. So, this is a visual on what Hannah had already said a little bit earlier about, you know, what's the percentage of the residential, what's the percentage of the CIP. And again, it's about 78%, and then 22 for the other three, the other three components. It's just, you can see that visually there, it makes it a little different. Final thing that I'm gonna throw in here is, it says your tax rate. How does this determine? A number of times I've said to you guys that the way we work up a budget up here, at least the way I've been doing it, it's a mock-up of your recap sheet. The recap sheet is in fact the thing that you're setting your taxes by. We make a mock-up of that. Revenues against expenditures. Very quickly, where are the revenues coming from? Taxes, near and dear to everybody's heart. State aid is the second piece, which again is your taxes just being taken by a different entity and getting given back to you. Local receipts, which is things that you're paying for, like, you know, building inspections, et cetera. Those types of things that come in there. And then our own internal funds. We pit those things, start off with the revenue. Then what do? We go out, we create a budget process, and everybody says, I need X amount of dollars, and we split that amount up. There's your pie. Now how much are we going to give to the police? How much are we going to give to the school? How much are we going to give to each department? We go to a town meeting where the people of the town vote. We did that last June, a little late because of the COVID thing. They voted what we have. That is what's going on to the recap now. And essentially that is the entire process, and it comes down to a calculation at the end of this is what your taxes are going to be. Maybe a little simplified, but it's essentially that. Revenues against expenditures. So you can go ahead.
Okay, earlier we talked about the three other options the Board of Selectmen have. And we talked about open space discount, and I said that Foxborough doesn't classify open space. So some large landowners participate in chapter land, and chapter land gives a higher discount, and it's from 75% to 98%, while open space discount is only 25%. The excess land value in Foxborough is assessed at $10,000 per acre, further reducing the need of the open space discount. So we don't have it because we have another program in for that.
Which is actually better.
Yes.
Can I just ask a question though? Do we talk about these every year? I just don't remember this. Or is there a reason we're bringing up residential and open space?
You want to vote on that you're not accepting.
So we
it
do
as
that
better.
every year. I just don't remember the open space or the residential exception because it
Yeah,
just
we-
doesn't seem to make sense to
we
us. I didn't know if
talked
it
about
came
it
up for some
last year.
reason.
Right.
No, I don't know if it actually came up last year, though, but.
I don't remember it. Yeah, that's why. To me, I'm wondering like to back it up where it's coming
But
from.
I think, you know, it's actually, it's a good practice to do it, actually.
Supposed to be in the classification
Okay,
here,
okay.
Yeah.
because these are options you have, again, to make a difference in.
Okay,
the-
so we'll talk about this every year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and essentially they're telling you don't do it, but
Okay.
at least you know what you're not supposed to
I
be
didn't
doing.
know if there was something else where it was coming from.
No, it's not,
Outside.
it's something that really should be done, you know, but it wasn't done. No, it wasn't done. I don't think it was done last year.
Yeah.
So here we have the residential exemption. A municipality can grant a residential exemption up to 35% of the average residential value for each owner-occupied property of real estate for tax purposes. This is done by shifting a portion of the tax levy from owner-occupied property to non-owner-occupied properties. and lower valued properties to higher valued properties. This is actually a redistribution of the levy among these classes, and is most advantageous in second home communities like Cape Cod and that type of thing.
Cottages and what have you.
Yeah, so Foxborough, everything is pretty much owner occupied. We don't hardly have any non-owner occupied properties. So the recommendation is the Board of Assessors does not support the adoption of the residential exemption. And the next slide should be the towns that have these exemptions.
Okay.
Next, we have the small commercial exemption, and briefly, so what does that mean? The intent of the exemption is to give a tax reduction to the small commercial properties at the expense of the larger commercial and industrial properties. The question of fairness arises since the legislation is based upon the assumption that the owners of higher value properties are financially healthier than the owners of properties at a lower value. So again, the recommendation of the Board of Assessors does not support the adoption of the small commercial exemption. And again, we have a listing of towns that have the small commercial exemption. So talking taxes, if Foxborough maintains a split rate, we can expect the following. An increase to the average single-family tax bill is estimated to be $276 or roughly $70 per quarter. Foxborough's top taxpayers will collectively contribute almost $17 million in taxes for fiscal year 2021. That includes all personal property taxes. The top 10 taxpayers pay almost 26% of the town's total tax levy. And we have sheets on who are the 10 highest taxpayers.
Yeah, it's been passed out.
Yeah, so in conclusion now, the action that the Board of Assessors are asking the Board of Selectmen to consider acting on tonight are the Board of Selectmen to continue with the split tax rate and adopt a residential factor. The factor represents a minimum percentage of the levy the residential class must pay and determines the shift towards the CIP classes. The Board of Assessors does not recommend a single tax rate of $15.62. The board recommends that the Selectmen approve residential factor of 0.9442. This factor is essentially the same percentage of split that the board voted last year. Recommend that the board vote no on the residential exemption and recommend that the board vote no on the small commercial exemption. So now kind of the board should decide what tax rates, what residential factors there are. And the Massachusetts Department of Revenue has a scenario worksheet, which I worked up for the meeting tonight and highlighted. I think everybody has that package?
Yes, I passed it up.
Yeah?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So highlighted in yellow, in the first column is the CIP shift, and what is highlighted in yellow, that is the recommendation of the Board of
It's not in
Assessors.
color, it's the one that shadowed over. Like, when it came out, it just came out, it's the one you can see
the
there.
bold.
Yeah, the bold.
The bold then, yes.
Yeah.
CIP shift is 1.20, if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 1.20 would be the shift, okay? And there is the residential factor. That is the factor the board recommends, 0.9442. That would result in a residential tax rate of $14.75 and a CIP tax rate of $18.75. So keep in mind, this is just for planning purposes. These numbers could change because of rounding. And I believe, because I peeked already on a sheet we have to sign later on, that the tax rate will be 1 penny lower. So it will be $14.74, and commercials are going to be $18.74. The shift will maintain, so the board really tries to just maintain what we are having and go forward with that, just like in the past, keep it all level and the way we done it prior.
So there's roughly about a $4 difference between the residential and the commercial and the CIP rate.
It's $3.99 exactly.
Yeah, so just, I said roughly.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear
Roughly,
that.
but it said but I think what's interesting, if you take a look at the residential single-family home property history, which is a couple slides in.
You want me to go backwards, Bill?
No, just, it's on the handout.
Oh, it's on the other piece.
It's in the
Okay.
handout, it's in the handout.
Yeah.
So what sheet are you on?
This is the one's residential single-family home property history,
Okay,
all right? And so it shows where,
Right
you
here.
can see where the values have gone. So you can see where the history is, that the single-family home value is at $485,876 for this current fiscal year. If you look all the way down, you can see how it's climbed from $392 to $930 all the way up to $485, or roughly just shy of $100,000 over about a 10 or 11 year span. So the rate itself, though, interesting enough, has gone down over time. The rate, the highest rate in the past 5 years was 2017 at 1504, and in 2015 it was at 1519, and since then it's gone down. It went down to 1457, and actually was the same exact rate in 2020 from 2018. So it's about 18 cents difference this year, but we're all in that. It's basically in that same ballpark every year after year after year. And you look at the increase in taxes has been roughly in the $250 range per year. The real exception was in 2013 and 14. 13 was up $491 and 13 was up $491 and 175 and 14. That depends sometimes dealing with the revaluation years, and you'll see a shift in the different impact on how it affects the tax rates. But so all in all, I think the significant thing is that the values continue to rise, which is again a good point that Hannah made, that it's a good value for those people who own property here, and that the rate itself is actually staying relatively flat. So, which is a good sign, because it means we're trying to do a good job of maintaining the cost and not rising the cost of the budget operations year over year. So obviously that's the goal we want. We want to maintain the services that we have, because if we don't, then we see the values go back the other way, which is not a good thing, and not good for the residents either. So. Anything else you want to add?
well, we have a bunch of other sheets here, and they kind of self-explanatory. So it just shows, different rates, different shifts, and, so the next one is a single-family dwelling, and you will see at the same assessed average values at different tax rates, what the tax bills would be, and the differences in the percentage, okay? And then you have the commercial and industrial classes, the same thing. You see the average assessed history all the way to 2008. We started to shift taxes in 2012, and so that shows the shift.
And I know something that came up last year that I don't see in here is just benchmarking with communities around us.
It's coming.
Okay.
Okay, and then here's another sheet, commercial properties, industrial properties. And again, it shows all the different tax rate if you would choose different tax rates, but that would be with a percentage difference. Here is the single-family tax information for different towns in the Commonwealth.
But I don't see the tax rates on it. I see the CIP shift, but I don't see,
No,
The
it's the last-
surrounding
it's the last
towns?
sheet, the last sheet. For the
Very last page.
comparison.
this one?
Comparables.
Is it
That's
is it
just
not
for
on yours?
Foxborough.
I just see the CIP shift, the levy percentage, the average tax bill, but I don't see the actual
You don't have this one here?
commercial and residential rates.
No, that's just for Foxborough. You're looking
Oh,
for all
oh,
the other towns, what their
Yeah,
tax
I mean, I
rates
did
are?
some on my own and looked, and, you know,
Oh,
it looks
yeah.
like we're in the middle, but usually we have a sheet that benchmarks, I don't know. Did you guys have anything, did you look?
Well,
at
you
other
see the
communities?
average tax bill is, in Foxborough is 6892, and it compares, if you look all the way down, it compares, I don't think we actually did a median.
didn't do an analysis of
Median
that.
analysis of that, but we're
Yeah,
we're close.
I think last year we definitely had the rates. I remember you presented it, Mike. I remember, anyway, it looks, from what I looked into, it looks like we're in the middle. Towns have anywhere from $3 to $6 between the residential and commercial, with 6 being on the high end, with like Mansfield and maybe Plainville on the
Yes,
lower end at
right.
3.
They have a higher percentage of.
Yeah, so just so that everyone watching understands, you know, where we compare to other communities, I think is really
Be
important.
very comparable to others.
Yeah, so I think for next year, that's important if we build that in with the rates.
We did have that last year.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
that in AdCom last year when Hannah came.
Well, I'm
and
sorry
presented.
about that. I didn't know that.
I'm sure
There's so
to
much
you this
think
is seeing it,
about.
but to us, you know,
Yeah,
laymen.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
yeah, no, what
We can
you,
get that for you, that's not a
yeah.
problem.
But we got the Foxborough tax rates history right there. We got something.
You know, and it's nice to see it come down. It's, you know, I don't want to misinterpret, you know, it's not just down, it is definitely up a little bit this year. You know, but hopefully there'll be other years we can trend it down, and, you know, obviously everyone takes the tax rate very seriously and the budget process seriously, and everyone wants to see us keep and maintain, you know, the lowest tax bill as we possibly can for our taxpayers that live in the community.
So quick question, kind of a crystal ball question.
Hold on a second.
Yep, go ahead.
Just, I think, before we start talking and ask questions, should we close the public hearing?
You can do that now if you want, unless there's,
Sure.
yeah, you can then
We do that,
deliberate.
just,
if you
yeah.
Or
want.
do we need to hear from the board at all, or?
You've seen their recommendation, so unless you want to add anything.
Right, motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, now go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so crystal ball question. Just having a conversation with somebody the last couple of days about the value of the homes in Foxborough. So Rob, you may be seeing this. So it seems like there aren't a lot of homes for sale. And so the homes that are for sale they're getting well above asking price, you know, supply and demand, that's.
Inventory is very low.
Right.
Yeah, so, and it's just supply and demand, and, you know, if somebody wants to live in town, and, you know, they say, hey, I'll give $20,000 more.
Sure.
So, will the COVID then in turn come back to kind of, where you said you look at the sale of homes for the whole year to help with taxes, will COVID actually be a factor?
Well, let's say,
So it would be jumping a year ahead. So I know it's a crystal ball question.
well, let me say this, and again, I'm getting this off of the news in other places that we see, but we've been having this conversation over, I go up 495 every night to go back to Middleborough where I live. And being the fun ride that it is, I sit there and entertain myself by counting the cars, and usually every sixth car is a New York plate right now. And it's COVID that has driven people from the cities. There's a flight from the cities. I have a house in Situate, and normally it's right out on the water. They have these big houses, and they're all like boarded up because they closed down. Not this year. The New York plates are still there, and they're living there now. So everybody is moving this way. So COVID did have That's one of the reasons you're seeing this skyrocketing prices, because you just called it. Somebody, the story goes, somebody said, a guy calls up, you've got a house for sale? How much? 500, I'll give you 525, never even comes down to look at it. Okay, just gives it to you, and here's the check, okay? So you're seeing this flight from New York, where they, obviously are pretty well heeled. You get penthouses and stuff. I don't want this anymore. I don't want the riots. I don't want this. I don't want that. I can't go out of my house. I'm going down to the Cape, and I'm going to live there. So yeah, it has had an effect on it. Whether or not, it's a hard thing to say going forward about like whether it's going to tank businesses and things like that. I just can't say, but I think that part of the thing that you're seeing right now is because of COVID. They just,
Yeah, I think a lot of it's interest rates more than COVID. And Rob, I don't know if you agree, but
Well, that's true too.
I feel like that's going to be the biggest driver in the next year with the presidential election and all that.
Right.
Interest rates are low, so people can buy more, they can spend more,
Mm-hmm.
they can buy a house. So I think that, to me, in my personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is more of a factor into play than COVID.
And they're coming out of Boston because
Yeah.
they don't have to live in the city.
Right.
So it's.
They're not commuting to work.
If you're not commuting to work at all.
Yep.
And you're paying $800,000 for a small
Right.
condo in Boston.
Right.
And you wanna come out here and have a yard, like people who live in Boston right now, I was working with a buyer and they were saying that their front yard is their sidewalk. They go outside,
Right.
they're on the sidewalk.
Right.
Normally they're going out to eat,
Right.
going to the gym, going to social events, and now they have nothing to do, so they come out here, even if they think it's only gonna be for a couple of years, but they wanna
Right.
get out
They
here.
feel like this is the time to make the,
Right.
make the
It's a
move.
good time
Yeah.
to own a house in Foxborough or any of the
Yeah.
cities.
Well, because,
that-
so my,
okay.
the feeling kind of is, I think everyone would probably agree, it's nice to live in a community that's desirable, and, and to know that your property values are good. But for the average person, if you're about to sell your home, that's a great thing. But if you're paying the taxes on it, and you're not thinking of going anywhere for a long period of time, that's the shift of, I think, the average taxpayer. I don't think anyone's ever gonna say it's not nice to have
An asset,
good property
right, right,
value.
right.
But,
It's a double-edged sword,
yeah.
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 But you are building equity, that's the other side of it. So,
Yeah.
if people who've been here for a really long time own their houses and don't have any payments on it, now, they're building equity every single year.
yeah,
And so if in fact it got to the point where, maybe they use some of that equity at some point to help them get through certain situations. But I think I see a third thing that's happening hasn't been mentioned, is that building has slowed down a little bit right now. And that's because the supply of lumber and materials is actually very, very high right now, because we're not getting stuff out of Canada right now. But I do think that will change come next year, and you'll see a lot more development going on. But the ones that are getting built are getting top dollar for those new houses right now, because they are so desirable.
yeah.
So I think, in short, to sort of like play off of this discussion, I think values this year are going to be up compared to this year. Values this year are going to be, when you go to set the tax rate next year, I think you're going to see a shift in those values continue to go up.
Yeah.
Because I think they're artificially high based upon the situation that we're in right now, but, and then we'll see whether they go back the other way. But conversely, I think some of the commercial stuff may stay flat for a while until we see how that plays out over the next few years.
Any other questions?
Can I just make a shameless plug, though, as we talk about inventory and everything with the housing production plan that's going on right now? So there's been a huge effort led by Paige Duncan to create a housing production plan for the town. So some of you may have seen the survey that went out at the beginning. Right now, the draft production plan is on the homepage of the town's website. I was going to mention this during Selectmen's update, but I think it just makes sense given what we're talking about. Home value, what do we want to see built? What do we want to see happen? So I encourage everyone, it is a long document, it's like 130 pages or so, but please read it. They will be coming in front of us to present it in the next couple meetings. But anyone watching at home or, just concerned about where's the town going, what's our plan for housing production, read that. There is a public hearing or a meeting on Thursday night that you can come to and send feedback. You can also send feedback to Paige or drop it off. But anyone that's paying attention to this, I think this is a good time to kind of look at that plan and send feedback if you have it as well.
Yeah, I don't think that's shameless, that's a good plug, actually.
It was
We need that-
timely
we need
now
that-
rather than later.
We need that plug right
given
now.
what
We
we're
definitely
talking
do.
about.
We definitely do.
So you need the vote.
Yeah, that's what Steph's going to do now.
Yep. So
Oh, no,
we're gonna-
George, we're not going to vote on this.
All right, so we're going to make the motions to vote right now?
Yeah.
Everybody good? All right. So, motion to continue with the split tax rate and adopt a residential factor of 0.9442.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to vote no on residential exemption.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Motion to vote no on the small commercial exemption.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great presentation, Hattie. You did
And
a
do we
great
not need to
job.
vote on the
Nice
open
job.
space one? Because
Thank
there was
you.
3.
Yeah, because we don't actually do it.
You don't have to vote
We
on
don't actually do
that.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I've given it to, there is a paper that I'm gonna send around. I don't think it's necessary, but when you're dealing with the state, it says that, you guys voted on it. I had you guys sign it last year. They claim this year you don't have to because it's electronic. I'm gonna get it anyway. I'm gonna get it 6 ways from Sunday and send it to them.
We have it in the packet.
Christina's got it, and if you guys.
It's in the
Yeah.
packet right here.
She already handed it over to me.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, I was gonna see if the assessors could do it as well. There's a place.
You want it signed now before you
No.
leave?
Well, no. You don't have to do it right in front of me. I just wanted them to, if they're gonna leave, maybe you could catch it as well,
Sure,
or something
yes,
like that.
You want to sign it before we leave?
Yeah. Then you can follow back with the electronic the next day or so.
All right, thank you again. Great presentation. Hannah, you did a great job.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Conservation Commission deed transfer
Thank you.
approval?
I think it's just the motion we need.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're making a presentation or anything like that. Bill, just a little, Bill, the next thing up is the deed transfer.
Yes.
Just a quick update for the rest of the board.
So this was a transfer that was, it was part of the River Ridge project. That was, a portion of that project was to be transferred to the town and for conservation purposes. We've finally worked out all the details of it. It has now been, the final document has been prepared by, the transfer document's been prepared by Florence Spillane, who has then also presented it to the Conservation Commission. They acted on it last night. So now it's before the Board of Selectmen to adopt. And then what will happen, once the board votes to approve that transfer, it'll then become, it'll be under the guise of supervision of the Conservation Commission. Okay?
Okay, so quick question, Bill. Just one, want to make sure I understand it. So the project, there was this 26 plus acres of land that wasn't buildable wetland. So, and then, so they're donating that back to conservation? Is that-
Yes, that's
okay.
right, yeah.
We actually talked about this maybe 6 weeks ago. It's the same piece of land,
Same
correct?
piece of land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Just want to make sure I was, make sure I had my I's dotted and T's crossed. Okay, motion to approve the transfer of parcel A and parcel B of the River Ridge subdivision to the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Any further discussion?
And just, there was no contamination on any of this land that's going to
No,
conservation?
no, that's
Okay,
absolutely
Which
true.
we talked about last
Yeah,
time. Okay,
that's right.
thanks.
All those in favor? All right, good. All right, next up for our
Thank you.
department head update is the Boyden Library. Come on up.
You can all come, it's okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. So March 16th,
Why don't you introduce yourself to the people
I'm
at
sorry.
home and your committee or your
Sure.
cohorts?
Manny Lee, I'm director of the Boyden Library, and to my right will be our new senior youth services librarian, Jessica Henderson. To my left is Colin Ernst, the chair of the Board of Library Trustees.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So on March 16th, Boyden Library closed its doors due to COVID. And there were a lot of questions going on in every department. And my goal was, starting on the 17th, was how do we get our doors open again for our patrons, for our citizens. So for the next couple of months, I was working to figure out how we could open. And I would speak to other directors that are obviously in the same boat as us. And I devised a phased reopening plan, very similar to what the state handed down, very similar to what our federal government handed down. And before I presented it to the trustees, I wanted to get staff involved, because I wanted staff to be safe first and foremost. Because if they weren't safe or they had questions, we weren't going to open to the public, not at all, because they're the front line. So once everything was all said and done, and we had all our shields up and our PPE, we were fully stocked, I brought it to the Board of Trustees, and the phased reopening plan was approved. So the first order of business was a curbside service, so which involved patrons literally parking their car in the lot, and staff would wheel out in a cart materials that they wanted to check out and borrow. We put it in their trunk, and then they would return it. And during this time, too, if I could just take it back, I mean, we all didn't know what was going on. I shut down all the book returns. We didn't want any materials coming back that had this virus, because it was still all, we didn't know what was going to happen. And I based my phase reopening on guidance from the IMLS, which is the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And they were working on phase reopening plans as well as how to quarantine items. And that's what we're currently doing at the library. So again, let's fast forward to curbside service. That's a success. Things are running all cylinders when it comes to that. The next thing, let's get our patrons back into the building. And we successfully did that. Again, from actually help from the administration as well as from the trustees, we were able to open our doors in June to our patrons. Granted, there was capacity limits. I think at the beginning it was like 10%, which was including staff would be 36 people in the building. We've increased that to 20% as of right now, which would be around 72. Again, you got to figure 10, 11, 12 staff. So we do have someone at the door at all times as like a monitor. So they're making sure we do not go over capacity and just making sure everyone's wearing some sort of facial covering entering the building. So we have that going, and we have virtual programming, which we took a crash course in that because this was all, again, new, and we're doing virtual programs, and we're still doing that. Our community room is completely closed, and it's serving as a quarantine for all materials. Our Storytime craft room in the children's area, it's the same thing. It's being quarantined. All items are quarantined for 72 hours. And that was based, again, on the IMLS, their study that they had as far as tracking the virus. So when that's all going on, and we're doing all right, Margie Rossetti, who was at the library and just a staple of the community for the last 31 years, she retired. And that was tough for me because she always looked forward to such a wonderful summer reading program, and she had all these events planned and the teddy bear picnic outside. Couldn't do any of it, which just actually broke my heart because I know that was going to be kind of like her swan song, her last summer reading program, but I mean, it is what it is. So Margie did retire after 31 years. So then the task was to find her replacement. And there was a hiring committee which consisted of myself as well as the adult services librarian, senior adult services librarian, Kathy Belharney, and Mike Johns, who was actually outstanding throughout the whole time. He just was there for guidance and had any questions. And we had a lot of questions that we needed answered, and he was there every time. So when the dust settled, we had our number one pick, and that was Jessica Henderson, who came from the Sharon Public Library. So I thought tonight, for some positive news, I'd like to introduce Jessica to the Select Board and to the
To the community.
viewers at home.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm really honored to have been selected for this position. I'm really excited about working at the Boyden Library in the town of Foxborough. And I wanted to thank the town manager and the assistant town manager for meeting with me, and Manny and the staff in the library for helping make it a smooth transition. I do a great summer reading too. I know there's a lot to live up to, but I'll definitely give you a
Not
good,
to be outdone, right?
Yes.
That's right.
yeah. So
How long have you been on board now?
I start on Monday.
Oh, you officially start Monday?
Yes.
Oh, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you all in the library.
Yes.
How long were you in Sharon for? before you
5
came here?
years.
So yeah, Jessica will begin on Monday. So that's where we stand right now. Currently in our fiscal year 21, business as usual when it comes to expenditures. Our circulation is still extremely high. Actually, we're still ranked #1 in the sales network as far as circulation. So we're continually ordering all the latest bestsellers, movies, keeping up to date with technology. We purchased 2 new streaming services for our patrons to use at home. Canopy, which is, when it first started, it was more like kind of like an art house type of streaming service, but now they've actually gradually gone into more mainstream science fiction, horror, thriller type of films, part of this service. Absolutely free. All you need is your library card. The other streaming that we have, and it's actually kind of geared towards children, young adults, is Creative Bug. And that was something that, and adults can do it as well. It's just various videos on how to design and create various projects. So we're continuing to do that. We have our Hoopla, which is still our other movie/music/graphic novel service. Overdrive, which is our downloadable audio books, our ebooks. We still have that going because we can't stop. I mean, granted, a lot has stopped at the library. It kills me that we don't have our community rooms open, but we need that to quarantine because those rooms are constantly busy. I'm not just talking programs for the library, but we'd have local organizations come in. It was always busy. Right now, that's on pause right now. So we look forward to, say, fiscal year 22, or maybe the end of fiscal year 21, things will start looking better. And once the dust settles and we have COVID behind us, and I'm biased saying this, but I do think the Boyden Library will be the most important building in town. Because right now, we're just not running at full capacity right now. The library welcomes all ages. We have programs for seniors all the way down to toddlers. We're not doing that. We're doing it virtually, but it's not the same. It really isn't. So once that's up and running, like I told staff, buckle up because we're going full force. I know our patrons miss us. They do contact us and they just miss attending programs, or like I said, artists would come in and display their work. That's not there right now, unfortunately. But once everything settles, we're going to be better than ever, and the residents of Foxborough deserve that because it's such a wonderful building. So we need to do that. So I guess in closing, I just ask for your continued support and the viewers at home through the remainder of fiscal year 21 and into fiscal year 22 because we're going to be better than ever.
Awesome. Any questions from the board?
Just one, and thanks for, everybody's work to kind of adapt and overcome. Currently, are you at your regular hours, like in the past, or are you at reduced hours, reduced days?
So we're currently at reduced hours. Right now, we're open Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 10 to 5, and Monday and Wednesday, 10 to 8. And we're actually open, as far as around here in the area, we're open the most. Seekonk was kind of near us, but Seekonk is actually going to be closing on Wednesday. Actually, all their buildings are,
All their buildings shut down.
all their buildings shut down because of the spike in cases. So we are at reduced hours. We've actually just increased them recently. I think we're at a good spot right now.
Okay.
And we'll just see what happens with the rise in cases, and, you know, if we have to pull back, I hope not, but if we have to, we have to. But if things start getting better, we'll definitely increase our hours to be open evenings again, and then eventually Sundays.
Okay.
And forgive me if it's a silly question, but you can walk in right now, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I've been so spoiled with the curbside pickup and the overdrive that, you know, I don't think I've made it past the circulation desk. So you can go into the children's, like if you want to go in and just kind of get back to browsing, okay?
Doors are open. We have a few public computers that are available for patrons to use. Like I said before, we do have a monitor at the door to make sure that we do not exceed capacity. But yeah, absolutely, we are open for business.
Great.
Yeah, Manny, could you just to give an overview of the staff members that you have?
Sure, and I wouldn't be able to do what I can do without the staff. I mean, they have just been absolute troopers and warriors throughout this whole time. And like I said before, I wanted to make sure that they were completely safe at all times. And if they had any questions at all, they could come to me. We'll start with the children's area. We have Jessica coming in, and we can't wait. She's got some terrific ideas, and there's a wonderful staff up there. We have Karen and Betsy and Casey. They're outstanding. And they're doing virtual programs right now for our families. Reference desk is still open for business. We have Tim, who's working the reference desk, still answering a lot of reference questions. Most of them are coming in via email or through the phone, but he's there answering the questions. And then our circulation desk, they're the front line. As soon as you walk in, there's the desk. And we have Kathy Lowy, and we have Joanna and Kim Ferguson and Melinda. They are troopers, and they've been excellent with customer service. They just kicked it up another notch when it comes to customer service, because I think everyone's still a little uneasy maybe entering the building. So we make sure that the patrons feel safe. And that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Kathy Belharney, who's our senior adult services librarian. She's their supervisor, and she's been working with them, making sure they have everything they need. And I do have to give it up to Suzanne, who's also our technical services librarian. All the new materials, they wouldn't be coming out if it wasn't for her. She's the one that makes sure everything is cataloged, working with Vicki and Tracy in the technical services room, making sure everything's out there. They've been outstanding. I am extremely lucky to have that, just a tremendous team. The positivity throughout this whole crisis has been up there. I make sure that everyone's happy, but if there's a question or a concern, I make sure it's solved as soon as possible, because you don't want an upset staff, because that, might result in maybe his service is not at 100%, and the town deserves 100%.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, I just offer a few thoughts, just on behalf of the Board of Trustees. Just wanted to comment how that the library team under Manny's leadership has done a phenomenal job. This whole pandemic is hard for every community, every person in the community. Mm-hmm. And from the outset, the team never lost focus on how important the library is to our community, mm-hmm. especially when we're on restrictive activities, locked in their homes, the information, the entertainment, everything that the library provides. And in the initial days when the library could not be open, the team was serving online, answering questions, and doing whatever they could remote, the online sessions, the video conferences, and then really trying to push very safely and prudently and thoughtfully to reopen in the library to have patrons back in. So just really impressed with Manny and the team, their focus on the role this library plays in the community throughout this, and just really commend the group for, as so many organizations and companies had to do, innovating what it means to be a library in this setting, and just a fantastic job, and appreciate how he's approaching this next wave as well. So,
right.
Commend Manny and the team.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming in front of us, and good luck Monday.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well,
That's right.
all right, have a good night.
Thanks,
Right.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, Mike, Assistant Town Manager's update.
Well, it's good to see Jessica here, and I know she's excited to start
See you.
Monday. And we have been busy with some hires, and this was a very important one. As Manny said, after 31 years, we wish Margie a happy and healthy retirement. She has been, as Manny said, a staple of this community, and kids have started in the library with her and grown up and stayed with the library. So, and now we truly believe we have the right person and a great person to step into those shoes and actually bring on some new things that we haven't seen yet. So
Torch has officially
yeah,
passed.
yeah. So Jessica, welcome to Foxborough.
I'm really excited and honored to be here.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. The two other main things that are going on. I mean, we've got a lot of people moving in positions. Especially like over in the water department as people get their new. D1 and T1, distribution and treatment licenses, things like that. They get the opportunity to move up, and then, other people move in. But the two main things that we're working on as far as recruitments are a new building commissioner. We're very active on that, and Mark will be leaving here, by Thanksgiving, and then we'll probably have about a week and a half where we don't have a building commissioner here yet, and then we expect to have someone after that. So we think we've got that well covered, and we've got some really dynamite candidates that we've been active in interviewing with recently. So by your next meeting, we'll have some news for you on that front. And the other one is Director of Public Health. That's an area where we're very active. We're working hard to bring a replacement in, and I'll actually leave. I don't know if Bill wanted to talk some more to that, or if we're gonna, or if you would like me to say more on it.
No, so that recruitment process is actually going to have to be stepped up a little bit because of the transition process is going to have to step up because we just received notice that the director is actually going to leave by the end of next week. So that's going to leave us about an extra month where we would normally have that position filled until the end of December, but it looks like it's going to be the end of November at this point. So we just received word about that this week. So we're going to have to look at a transition process at this point. So I'm going to work on that piece this week to see how we can best address that situation. And then I'll be letting people know how that works out. But I am going to have a conversation with the chairman of the Board of Health this week and see how we can then proceed from here. All right, but certainly it's unfortunate, but especially in this environment right now, that we don't want to leave that position vacant for very long. And given the consideration that we're dealing with a spike in cases, and also the fact that we're probably on the verge of a major inoculation effort that's going to happen here in town, and we want to make sure that that's being well managed throughout that process. So on top of all the other things, the renewals, the licenses, all the things that goes on this time of year, it's a busy time. So we want to make sure that we're managing that effort as best we can. Okay. All good?
And that's all I had.
Okay,
And
great.
in light of that, we're still not going to post on Indeed or any of the mainstreams. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I really feel like we're doing ourselves a disadvantage.
Yeah, that's correct. I want to reinforce what I had said at last week's meeting, that we have posted on the right places for those positions.
Yeah, I saw them. I went on there.
Yeah, and so, for the Director of Board of Public Health, we're on there's two major associations in Massachusetts. That's the, Massachusetts Association of the Boards of Health, as well as the health boards, and the other one is the one for health directors. And so we're out there on those. The one MMA, the Mass Municipal Association, where I'm sure you've seen our ad, and that's where people who are, in municipal government looking to move across or move up, that's where they're looking, and we're looking for people with credentials. And that's where those people are. They're not on Indeed, they're not on Monster. Same for building commissioner. We're looking for somebody with the CBO designation. We're not going to get them off of Indeed. We're really not. We've had actually a couple of architects apply for our building commissioner position. We'd love to have an architect. They don't have the the qualifications. And you think about, as an architect, way up here with all the education and experience they have, but they're not qualified to do the type of work that's needed of a building commissioner, let alone not even a local building inspector. So we are advertising in the right places. I do hear where you're coming from, though, because you're right when it comes to some of our other support positions. We do want to, as you say, cast a wider net on those. These ones, we're digging into the right places, though.
And I know, like, for the building, for like Pauline's position, I would expect the Board of Health to help facilitate that, but is anyone helping with the building commissioner process? I know normally, like, for a department head, one of us sits on.
So on those two, and we try to get someone from an appropriate board, committee, or commission onto those type of top, major recruitments. So for the building commissioner, we have the chairman of the zoning board of appeals,
Okay, great.
Barney Overett, who's as you all know, is very knowledgeable, and he's the right person to be asking those zoning questions and appeal questions, things like that. And same thing
Paige Duncan
for
as well.
the, and we've got, some of our major department heads on that as well, the people that work with them. And then similarly with the director of public health, as Bill mentioned, we're going to be continuing our conversations with the chairman of the Board of Health, and we do want a member of the Board of Health to be on that as well, and that will be up to the chair to let us know which member is going to be on the interview panel with us.
What are the credentials now for Pauline's job again?
So there's a lot in there. It's on the town webpage, but the main ones, we're looking for somebody with a college degree in public health, bachelor's degree required, or master's preferred, or equivalent. So there are some equivalents there, and there's also some trade-offs with experience. And the other thing is that somebody needs to be a registered sanitarian. And, I will acknowledge that there are communities out there, because it's tough to find these people, there are some communities out there that are taking the chance and saying that, registered sanitarian, required within 1 year of hire, and we just don't feel like that's a risk we want to take. And it's the exact same with our building commissioner. There are communities out there saying, get your building commissioner designation from the state of Massachusetts within 6 months, a year, 18 months. Again, not a risk we want to take. We believe we can attract people to Foxborough. We want them to come here as highly educated and credentialed as possible.
And the other challenge with the Board of Health registered sanitarian requirement is that you have to have a degree in order to even sit for the exam. And so and that also requires that you have to at least 45 credits of science as part of that requirement of the degree. So you can't just have a bachelor's degree as a generalist. It has to be something in science. And so that's why it's a bit of a challenge to get the right people in for those positions. There's also a certified public health official, and we would certainly look at somebody like that. But again, the registered sanitarian is something that is really sort of like the minimum requirements that you should have. And that was well documented in a state report that was done back in 2019. And while I think the person who came and spoke about that said that's the gold standard, but the question, is it really the gold standard, or is that the standard we're all looking for? And the answer is yes. I mean, if you talk to public health experts, they will tell you now more than ever you need to have a person that's qualified to serve in that role.
Yeah, the virus has taught us that.
That's right.
Well, no, why I was asking, because when the fire chief, when they were here last week, you said Mike is a sanitarian?
Mike is a registered sanitarian, and Tom is just a couple courses away from finishing his MPH.
Okay.
And
So,
Mass and Public
Yeah,
Health.
well, I was asking, so where, was that stuff that they acquired after they were already on the department?
No. So Tom came to us as already had an RN designation, and
Yeah.
he was already working on his MPH.
Yeah.
Mike had already worked on getting his registered sanitarian, and the only thing that held him up was getting his actual license from the state. and the state held, because due to COVID limitations, they couldn't,
Okay.
they weren't meeting.
Yeah.
But he actually just recently got it, so he does
Yeah.
have it, everything here.
Well, because why I was asking, 'cause- so what would be the harm in casting the net? So there, he's coming from the medical field with the credentials.
Right.
So, I mean, do you already have people that have applied that you
So
think
is-
are what you're looking for?
Is that Deputy Kenvin, you mean, coming
Well,
from the?
well, no, when Leah was asking about widening the net, is it just a municipal? So we know people who have some of these qualifications, but they came from outside of municipality.
Well, so Deputy Kenvin didn't come from outside of municipalities. He was working at Sharon Fire
Sharon.
Department,
He worked in Sharon before.
if
he
that's
came
who
in.
you were referring
Oh,
to.
yeah, I thought you said that Mike Kelleher, I thought last week there was something, maybe you said
He's a
Tom.
registered sanitarian.
He's a registered sanitarian, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's grown up here in the Foxborough
He's grown up
Fire
here, he
Department.
literally has,
Yeah.
been.
No, but I'm just saying, did that come from, wasn't Mike also a nurse before he came
No,
from? the
Mike was an occupational, has a degree in occupational health.
Okay, yeah. So that's why I was asking, so there are other occupations that might have some of this. So, I mean, I'm not telling Mike how to do his job. If candidates are coming his way that he thinks are interested, that's great. But if not, and we know that Pauline's leaving sooner, why not just cast the net bigger?
Well, we've done that before.
Okay.
Okay? We've taken that approach, and we end up with 100 applicants, none of them are qualified. So we end up going through a process when basically wasting our time. So we know that this process, I mean, Mike and I have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah,
We know what the process should be when it comes to municipal positions. Like I said, we've taken that step and we've looked at that, and because we thought that was a good way of approaching it.
yeah.
And then we find that we have to throw out 90% of the candidates because they're not even, in fact, almost all of them don't even meet the minimum requirements. So, when it comes to very specific types of requirements for jobs, you have to look at the focused areas where these people come from. And now it'd be interesting to see if, and believe me, if those people are looking for those jobs, that's where they're looking, to the places that we advertise.
So they'll look.
They'll look at those places before they look anywhere.
But I'll give you
And not to belittle the point, but like, you could take any job. You could say, a partner at a law firm or a doctor here. I mean, they're all on these mainstream sites and everyone has that same, I could be fresh out of college and apply for a position I'm not,
But not in municipal government where you're required to have a license, a certain type of license.
So-
That's the issue, that's the difference.
I'll
That's
give
the
you,
real
I'll give you an example of one of our very hard-to-fill positions, though, where we are casting wide, and that's the equipment mechanic. So we're looking for somebody who's like ACE certified, diesel mechanic, also worked on smaller things, all those ones. That's a very hard position to hire. Why? Because other places pay more than municipalities. It's just tough to attract somebody for what we pay for mechanics, but we do get applications. That one we cast wide for, because, most of our mechanics, we're actually pulling them in from the private sector. They're coming from Ford, or they're coming from somewhere else. That's where they're getting their ACE certification.
They'll
It's-
find that maybe the pay might be the same, but if you work for a municipality, you're talking about having a benefit package
Exactly,
and
right.
and
And that's why
retirement.
that's why they come.
Yeah.
That's why they come.
Yeah,
Because they want
So-
a more stable environment, they don't, they
Yeah.
get a situation where they get the benefits and they get everything that goes with
Or
it.
sometimes it's because they're close at home.
Yeah,
yeah.
true, yeah.
So quick question, just because you brought up mechanic. Last week, did we say that the mechanic that's going to work on the fire, the public safety stuff is now going to take on from possibly working on other communities?
Yeah, so we haven't finalized that approach yet, but what's happened is that we think we have the capacity, at least the fire department thinks they have the capacity to help other towns with some of their mechanical repairs. So in the event, because the particular person they have on their staff has all the public safety vehicle repair certifications, which
Yeah.
is a different set of certifications that you'd have on the normal AC.
So I meant to ask this last week, so may sound like a stupid question, because I'm sure you guys have looked into this, or the answer's probably easy. If we head in that route, is there any liability to the town if we work on another town's equipment and say something happens? Is there some type of insurance that's just blanketed in our, stupid question, we work on it and they're driving down the street and a tire comes off or something like that?
Yeah, so that's not a stupid question. I'll take it, I'll take the first stab at it, and then, Bill can jump in. But, anytime we're doing something like that that's different, we're talking to Maya. That's our insurance collaborative. And, we just had our annual review virtually with them last week, and, they asked, what about this, what about that? And, what about a vacant building? What about we're taking on this new piece of equipment, or we're doing this new task? That's something we'd be having a conversation with them about.
And find out what
So what we should and what we shouldn't do.
Yeah.
So Bill and I and Katie in our office, as well as, Babs and Chris over in DPW, we're talking with these folks all the time. And, we've got, a workers' comp rep, we've got our injured on duty rep over there, we've got our building and vehicle liability reps, and then we've got our health insurance reps, and we're talking with them all the time. So that's, we'd be looking at that
Yeah,
stuff.
I was just asking, because it's like thinking out of the box a little bit.
Right.
Which isn't maybe the way it's always been done.
So even on.
I figured you guys had it covered. It was just a question.
No, it's a fair question. So,
Yeah.
people should know that. So we don't just jump into those things. Not only that, but in order for us to even do that, we would have to do what is known as an intermunicipal agreement, which would be between the two towns, and this board will actually sign off on that. So that will be the time when that question get asked. You can ask that question at that. So how are we protected in the event that something like that were to happen? So that's something that, it'll be a question of what we will assume for liability versus the town itself that's asking for the work to be done.
Yeah.
Usually when it's a intermunicipal agreement like that, where we do a regional agreement type of thing, it's like there's a sharing of the liability between the two towns as opposed to one town taking it on altogether. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. So I guess it's my time to go on to the next phase. So some good news to report today that we just received approval from the state that the $558,000 of the remaining COVID CARES Act money has been approved for the state, for the town to spend. So we sent that into the state, and we just received approval today. So we can actually proceed with using those funds. And we have until the end of this calendar year in order to make that happen. So we have a list that we've already put together with all the departments, including the school department, to be involved in that process. So right now, as I see it right now, we're probably down to about I'd say about $70,000 or $80,000 that we haven't committed to spending of that remaining funding for the remainder of this fiscal year, of this calendar year.
Have not committed.
They were not committed to spending for. So we don't want to turn it back if we can help it. Obviously, we want to make sure that we use it all for the right reasons. So the other thing that I want to notify you all is that we did receive approval today for we did receive the temporary CO for the new CEMRIC facility in Foxborough. So that we will be actually starting to operate out of there probably later this week, as early as probably early as next week. But the plan is to try and get operating this week from that facility. So what will happen is that town of Norton will switch over on December 8th, and Easton will switch over on December 15th. So we'll have all four towns operating out of that facility as of December 15th of this year. So that's operating. The project stayed on time, stayed on budget, went really, really well. So I congratulate Rob Vadone and his team for making that happen on behalf of the CEMRIC board. And then, and so certainly, unfortunately, we're not able to do a ribbon cutting now because of the COVID numbers the way they are. So if anybody wants to see it, certainly let me know, and we'll make arrangements to get you up there and to have you see it. I will tell you right now, it is the most impressive thing I've seen in a long time. What they've done with the building, not only but the operation itself, is something out of a space age movie. It really is something really phenomenal. So pretty excited to see it. So I will, again, so let me know when it's convenient for you, and we'll set up a time to take you up there to take a look at it, okay? That's all I have.
Selectmen's update? Anybody? The only thing I want to bring up is the Council on Aging survey for the potential new facility. We've got that posted everywhere. I think you have it up at, you put it on the Lions signs? Are you in charge of that anymore?
Somewhat, but no, I never got any info to put it up there.
Oh, I thought I saw that when I was walking over here. It is. Yeah, so it's, where are some of the other places? They can go to the Council of Aging and do the survey there. I thought the survey was just for seniors, but I think, Leah, you told me it's for everybody.
Yeah, it's for everyone,
everyone,
and it's right
yeah.
on the homepage is the easiest place, the town's website.
Okay.
And it's open till the 27th.
And the reason it's open to everyone is because they're not certain as to what kind of facility they want to build at this point. So it could be a community center, which could include both seniors and recreation folks, and, you know, multiple types of recreational activities.
If you'd like a paper copy, you can go to the COA during your normal business hours and pick one up as well.
Yeah, but everybody, go online, take the survey.
I'm told they
More
already
people, the better.
had like over 500 people in the first 6 days, so that's a good response, so.
And just to remind people, we voted on that at the last town meeting to do the feasibility study.
Correct.
And this is the next
Yeah.
step.
It was like $35,000, I think we approved.
That's right, exactly.
Feasibility. And this is just phase one of that.
That's right, yeah. I mean, we obviously know this is not going to happen in the immediate future, but it's something we have to plan for now. And, you know, it's something to be said about the fact that the success of the program is really building to the point where we really need more space. But not only that, but the actual age of the communities is getting older as well, which means that we're going to have more seniors participating in these programs. So obviously, that's something that we need to plan for now.
Okay. Just one action item?
Yep. Motion to approve the July 7th, 2020 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I was absent that time, so I'm going to recuse.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So 4-0 and 1?
Okay, and before I motion to adjourn, happy Thanksgiving
Yeah.
to the board, everybody watching, and administration. Hope
Thank you.
everybody has, it'll be a different holiday,
Will be.
but,
A lot smaller, I think.
yep.
Smaller
happy
turkeys this year
Thanksgiving.
for everyone.
The turkeys are the same size. We already got ours.
Lots of leftovers.
There you
That's
go,
right.
that's right. We'll be using a lot longer leftovers.
So we'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.